Welcome back to the channel, and today we're taking a look at a knife that was probably my most requested fixed blade on the channel that I can recall, and that is one coming from a very good knife company, and this is the Hornet. Now, I slapped a slim 3x3 ulti-clip on mine because I didn't like the little belt attachment that it came with, but it just depends on how you want to carry yours, and I'll show you how that works later on in the video. So here's a look at the knife. Now let's pan on down and take a better look at it. All right, let's take a look at this sheath. It's a very nice Kydex sheath. It's got some good thickness to it. I love the push-off point. Absolutely no rattle. As of right now, there's none. Tons of lashing points. I like that they went with the taco style sheath, so it's not a very bulky sheath. You have a nice drainage hole at the bottom right there. And like I said earlier, I slapped a slim 3x3 ulti clip on mine, and I like the way this carries now. It carries better than I expected. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but let's take a look at this. So I love their little marking right there. This knife is made in the USA, and they do drops on their website. Like right now, there's a knife coming up, and there's a sheep's foot blade the same size as this one that you can get, but it's in EDC RV2. This particular one has a drop point blade. A lot of people said, why would you pay that much for a kitchen knife? Yeah, it's just a classic drop point, you know, neutral handle. I can see what you mean. I mean, especially being that I went with the black micarta. But it has a nice satin finish on here, nice little top swedge, super chunky blade stock. It's like 4.2 millimeters or 0.165. Very thick. I prefer my EDC fixed blades to be thin and slicey, but that's just me. If you're looking for something that's super overbuilt, then this is probably a good option. Now, when I say that, he does have a smaller version of this that I will definitely try to pick up. It's called his Wasp, and it's got thinner stock, and it's a lot lighter. So you do not have any jimping up top, but you got a nice flat spot to rest your thumb. I think I would have liked to have some jimping just because I like having jimping on my fixed blades, just because I use them a little bit harder than the folders. You do not have a sharpening choil, as you can see there, and you can kind of see it recurving into it. I'm probably, after this review, I'm probably going to cut me a little small hole right there for a sharpening choil just to make it a little bit easier, because I don't want to hit these plunge grinds whenever I'm trying to sharpen in my fixed angle system. Now, do you have to do that? No, you could sharpen it all the way to the back right here. You could possibly fix that little recurve they got going. Now, whenever I check the behind the edge thickness on my particular knife, it's around 21 to 22 thousandths behind the edge. You know, I was like, okay, that's not that bad for having this thick stock. And I started doing the testing for it, and I was kind of shocked. Y'all see that in just a second. But it has a nice 17 degrees per side edge bevel. This particular one is in a stainless in Nitro V. He also offers the same design in EDC RV2. All of his knives, whenever they're available, they're either EDC RV2 or Nitro V. I don't really like EDC RV2 all that much because all mine tend to rust fairly easily here in Louisiana. We have some severe humidity. Now, it may not rust because he puts a pretty high satin finish on it. That would close those pores up a little bit on there. But if I have the choice, I'm going with Nitro V. I prefer the edge retention over the EDC RV2, which is super tough, but like I said, is susceptible to corrosion. Well, like I said, you have a deep hollow grind, comes down to around 21, 22 thousand, 17 degrees per side. Let's see how this bad boy cuts. One thing I can say for sure is this knife came ridiculously sharp. I'm not sure if he hand sharpens them or not, but he did a great job on giving me a nice crisp edge that had a ton of bite to it. And being that it has a 17 degrees per side edge bevel, it's going to slice well. It has a hollow grind. It does thicken up rather quickly, but as long as you're not cutting anything like an apple or cheese or anything like that, you should be fine. It's making sharp work of the cardboard, no doubt. And I didn't know how the edge bevel was at this point. It wasn't until after this test that I had to go check it, just because it was slicing so well. Now we're testing those ergos, see how that edge wants to bite into this piece of pine. And it definitely wants to bite quickly. And the handle's very comfortable. It's a very neutral handle. It's thick, filled out the hand nicely. I felt like I could have done this for a really long time without fatiguing myself, my wrist or my forearms. And yeah, it's definitely doing a great job here. We're gonna test it out on a ferro rod in a little bit as well. And as you can see, it really strikes a ferro rod good. It's got a nice 90-degree spine on it. No problems. It was throwing them very, very nicely. Now, I want to see how that hollow grind would handle doing some batoning. So these are some pretty knotted up pieces. I'll show you some of them in a second. And then we push it to its limits, at least in my opinion. Look at that. Some nice twisty, knotty stuff, some birch, and I don't know what the other stuff is, but it's all some pretty tough stuff. I'm hitting on it pretty hard. And I checked the tip after pretty much each one of these, and I checked the edge, and both were unscathed. Now I did blunt the tip during one of these because I turned around to do something and it slid out of my hand and went tip first into the concrete. So this is probably the largest piece I would do. I think it's about 1.5 inches, maybe a little bit further, maybe a little bit bigger than that. But this one I kind of struggled just because I didn't have a whole lot sticking out, but you could definitely do it if you had to. And don't worry about the hollow grind being fragile or anything. Nitro V is a pretty tough steel. You shouldn't have any issues. That's about all I can say on that. Now I will say that that wedging effect from the hollow grind to the full thickness does help when you're batoning. It helps split, it helps part that material away. So at least that's one, look at that knot. At least that's one plus. You can't get that tip down onto the surface, but I use that portion right behind the tip. That belly is going to be excellent at doing all this type of stuff. And being that you have that thin edge bevel, all the dense stuff that I'm cutting wasn't any problem. I did kind of feel it during the corner cardboard because it's a dense material and it's higher up, so it was kind of rubbing on the sidewalls a little bit. But everything else, it's going to blast through. So it really depends on what you're going to be cutting with your fixed blade. I like my EDC fixed blades to be super slicey, so that's why I prefer them to have thinner stock. This is the thickest stock I have on any of my EDC fixed blades by a good margin. But that edge is still nice and crisp. As you can see, it's blasting through the sisal rope. And I don't know what they run their HRC on their Nitro V at, but if I had to guess, it's got to be close to 60 if I would venture to say, just by the way it's performing and how that edge is still holding up as good as it is at this point. And I think we get through 120 cuts before I ran out of the piece I cut, and I think it's more than acceptable. Now I would test the edge out, but like I said, I did drop this on the cement and it blunted the tip and landed toward the belly a little bit. So I have the two minor little chips or maybe rolls. I didn't really investigate too much, and a blunted tip, so it's not really fair for the knife if I were to test that edge. I may test just the back portion that I know didn't get affected by the concrete, but you still got to keep that in mind because I don't have a microscope on it or anything if I do decide to do that. But comfortable in the pinch grip, belly made this very easy work, especially with that bite on that edge. Let's check out that edge. Like I said, I have a few dings from dropping on the concrete, so we'll just see. Yeah, that's where the dings are right there. But other than that, let's see. Away from the dings, that's where the ding is. There's another ding right after that. But other than that, I'd say that's good to go. And the dings are very small. Got one right there, and then blunted the tip. But that's not that bad for dropping it on concrete. Well, I have to say this thing performed outstanding. It came with such a crisp edge on it. Now this is the factory edge. I don't know how he sharpens it. I don't know if he sharpens it by hand or on a belt, but the way this held up, it almost feels like he sharpens it by hand. I doubt it because I don't know. Well, I don't know. This is a small batch company, so he might be able to do that. Now, my tip on mine is a little bit blunted because I did drop it on the cement whenever I was doing the batoning with this, and it just barely blunted that tip. I'm gonna sharpen it up after this anyway, so not a big deal. I thought the steel held up really, really well, or about a common with Nitro V. I like some of the attention to detail that he does with his knives. Like, one of my pet peeves is a lot of times when I get some of these EDC fixed blades, this portion right here has a sharp spot. Well, you can see, hopefully you can see how he put a chamfer on both sides right there, and he knocked off those hard edges, so it's nice and comfortable. I said earlier I would have liked to see a sharpening tool here, but not the end of the world, and I could sharpen it all the way to the back right there if I wanted to. Now thankfully this is in a stainless steel because these are bolt-on scales. That was another huge reason why I did not want an EDC RV2 knife. If I get it wet underneath here, it's going to corrode. It's going to corrode bad, and I wouldn't even know about it. So I guess it just depends on how you feel about that. The handle is pretty much neutral grip. There's no crazy choils or anything. You do have a little choil area right here, a ramp where it keeps you away from that edge. He does some nice finishing on these micarta scales. They are a little bit slick because he did take it up a little bit. I think after this video I'll probably rough mine up just so I can have more of that texture that offers a lot more grip than these do. But all your edges are nice and softened all around. There's no sharp spots. Decent thickness. It filled out the hand nicely. It was very comfortable, nothing uncomfortable. No matter which grip I hold it in, it was very, very comfortable. In the pocket, it carries pretty well. I thought it would be a little bit more bulky. I slapped a slim 3x3 Ulti clip on there. Works good. Get out the pocket and back in. And doesn't affect me when I'm sitting down. Yeah, not bad. Quick size comparison with the Phobos Tier 1 Mini, which is a little bit longer. And we have the Montana Knife Company Speed Goat, which is very similar in overall length. Very similar in size to the Kaiser Baby and the Work Tough Gear Nomad EDC. It's pretty similar to a Spyderco Mule Team knife, and it's a little bit shorter than the Sencut Waxahachie. Because of that thick stock, it is a little hefty at 5.19 ounces without the sheath. And then with the sheath, you got to also add that I have the Ulti clip on there. It's almost 7 ounces, so let's call it around 6.8 or so without the Ulti clip. So my nitpicks and complaints, like I said, I would have loved to have a sharpening choil. I would like to have jimping up here. For me personally, I don't need a super hefty, robust EDC fixed blade. I like mine to be nice and slicey, and I found over the years testing so many knives that you don't have to have thick stock for a knife to be tough. I have a 1/8 inch stock AEBL knife that I beat on a lot, and it's held up just fine. So you don't have to have that stock. That stock is just adding extra heft to it. I think this was like 5.5 ounces, and that's another thing I don't love about I like my EDC fixed blades to be almost feel like I have a folder in my pocket. But you know, the fit and finish of everything is top notch. I love the fact that it's USA made. I do wish they had a little bit of jimping up there, and I wish that these were bolt-on rather than pin construction, just in case I needed to clean up underneath there. So my final thoughts, these go for $175. I don't think that's too unreasonable because I reviewed, or I don't know if it came out yet, but the Boca Trail made is in Nitro V, and that's made overseas, and they asked $98 for it. So an extra $75, being that it's USA made. You got thicker blade stock. This is an overall bigger knife than that one. I definitely don't think it's out of line, and this won't be my last knife from Very Good Knife Company. I will try to pick up one of the Nitro V Wasp, and there's a couple of other smaller models that he has that I don't know if he still makes them or not, but if any of those come back in stock, I might pick up those as well to review on this channel if that's something I would like to see. So there you go. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave those down below. I hope everybody's having an absolute amazing day. I will see y'all on the next one. Peace.